This is the Citrus Experience podcast, brought to you by Citrus Men. We're passionate about growing premium grafted citrus trees and helping you on your growing journey. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or an emerging green thumb, this series is for you. We share expert advice, insider knowledge and practical tips you can apply because we know and grow citrus.
Well, hello and welcome to the Citrus Men podcast. I'm Susan Burns.
And I'm Gary Isles.
And in this episode, we're going to travel into the lands of the finger lime. Over the last couple of decades, interest in our native Australian limes has grown enormously, and there are just so many varieties available to the home gardener. It's kind of overwhelming. So today we're going to jump in and have a little chat about the wonderful finger lime. So let's start. Hello, Gary. Let's start. Let's start with the story about the Australian lime. What's the backstory of the lime?
Okay, well, as you've mentioned, it goes back a long way, and I'm going to go back even further. Now, just as a side note, that it's generally accepted that citrus came from the Asian region through China and up into Japan. That's the origins. However, there is a little theory, let's call it, hypothesis, whatever you want to call it, from a certain sector of the scientific community, that the finger lime was the start of it all. That the finger lime is where citrus began. So, you know, as Aussies, we like to think that that's probably true. Now, there is some argument, but however, I think let's run with that.
That
finger limes was the start of it all. I think that's a great story. So before the continents all divided and went off on their separate ways, then the thought is that this is what citrus were like back in that time, or something similar, and then we came off down here on our own, and then it's developed quite separately to how citrus developed in the Asian region. So, you know, that's a little thought that I like to go with.
Yeah, I love that.
Now,
from the Gondwana times. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So these are the finger limes, or the ancestry of finger limes have been here for a long time. So, you know, they've developed over years, and they've been mainly rainforest plants in the understory of rainforests, and that's where they've lived in various parts of Australia. And we're going to also touch on the desert lime, because that's part of our GEMS range. Even though it's not actually a finger lime, it's still native to Australia. So we'll be talking a little bit about that as well. So
it's a little bit different. It's different, isn't it?
It's different.
Yeah.
The plant is quite different. The fruit is quite different, and the climate is quite different, where it's a desert type climate. The finger limes have come out of, like I said, from the rainforest areas. So that's where they've been. And then, you know, in the last probably 40 years, then they started to move into the modern population being interested in them. Yes. And lots of selections have been made, and and that's what we're growing now. We're growing these selections that have been made over the years.
So, Gary, there are so many finger limes. How many finger limes have you got that in the Citrus Men? Where they're under a banner. We have them under the banner Citrus Gems. But how many does Citrus Men grow? How many varieties?
Including, like I said, the desert limes, and we've also got some native crosses from the CSIRO that we grow. There's 12 of those that we're growing. And then there's another handful, 3 or 4 that we're putting onto the dwarfing rootstock. So that's the area we're developing now, is to start putting some on the dwarfing rootstock, putting them into a small pot. So So people with smaller areas can have finger lime or desert lime on a dwarfing rootstock. So yeah, so there's quite a few that we're growing.
I think the point there that you make, Gary, is that they're grafted. So the original finger limes would not have been grafted, and they wouldn't have had to have coped with different kind of environments and climatic conditions that the modern finger lime is having to deal with. So all of the finger limes are grafted, which makes them really, in the shoe section, behave like a normal citrus. They're not really then native. Is that correct?
Well, the top's still native, but yes, no, we're on a normal citrus rootstock, so that gives them a broad range of capabilities. And as I said, and also we're using the dwarfing rootstock to bring the size down in some of the varieties as well. But yes, originally and over the years they've fruited. The seeds dropped in the understory of the rainforest, and then they've grown up, and that's part of the reason why there's so many different colours and selections, is because of that seedling variation. Now, we don't propagate them from seed because, one, you're not sure what you're going to get. Two, the root system's not going to be as good as on a proper rootstock. And also, when you grow from seed, they get what we call this juvenility. So it may be years and years until you get some fruit.
Yeah.
So there's lots of variation from seed. So we don't propagate from seed. We propagate from mother plants that we know what they're like.
And it's certified stock as well.
Certified stock. Yes, I'd like to make mention that there is a lady that spent her life looking at finger limes, and she's the one that has really helped us to get what we feel are the best selections. And that lady her name is Judy Biola, and if you're listening to the podcast, hi Judy.
Hi Judy.
And she has done a massive amount of work selecting out the really best ones over the years, and looking at them for quite a long time. So we really appreciate her help, and with us to grow the ones that, in the main, she has selected. Now, then again, once we've selected these varieties, we've then done all sorts of testings to make sure that they're clean and healthy sources for us to grow from, and that's something that we've done on our own, that no one else has done. So you can be assured that we've done this lot of work to select what we want and to make sure it's good, healthy stock.
Yes, and that's such an important point, because when you're buying a citrus stem from the Citrus Men or any of those finger limes, those native citrus, you are assured that you're getting the best of that one, because there's a series of different colours and slightly different habits, but they are the very best, the creme de la creme of the finger lime world. Yeah, whatever quality it is, and we'll go through a couple of those in a minute. But yeah, it's people like Judy that do all this amazing work that we can tap into, and often they're not recognised. So big hats off to Judy. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Look, I just want to quickly, in case listeners don't know what a finger lime is, I'm sure that they do, but they do look very different. The tree looks very different to what we would call a usual or normal citrus tree, and the fruit is really the shape of your little finger or a fat finger, and they can be longer and skinnier and fatter, and they're full of little, do we call them vesicles? What are they called, Gary?
Vesicles. Vesicles. Some, some people call them citrus caviar. That's used quite often.
Yeah. So
yes, they are. Yes, they are. When they're ripe, if you crack the fruit in half, it'll just ooze out like caviar a bit. So and they're little sacks of they're very acid fruit, but they're also can be quite flavoursome. So it's quite a different piece of fruit to your normal citrus. And just going back to the plants, yes, the plants are, some grow upright, some grow a very willowy, soft habit, some grow a little tight bush. So they're very variable. as they are in colours, everything from reds, pinks, very bright greens to light greens, and even a one that's got a sort of a goldy colour to it. So there's a lot of selection in the finger lime world.
Yes, and I must say I have tried. Clearly, I've tried the Citrus Men, the Citrus Gems range, and delicious. It's quite an experience to bite in and get that little crunchy explosion of citrus flavour in your mouth. But I have also tried them where I bought them at, say, like a market or something, and I've been a bit disappointed. But because they're seedy, they seem to be not as, I don't know, maybe it was the way they were grown, but I like to know that if I bought a finger lime, I'm going to get one that's going to produce tip-top fruit. So it's interesting the variation that you'll find with trees that are perhaps not grafted and grown properly, and they're just seedling selections. So don't be disappointed if you try. I suppose what I'm saying is if you try a finger lime fruit and you think it's a little bit disappointing, it might be because you're not having the best one.
Yeah, that's right. And as I said, as I alluded to before, we've done a lot of work to pick the very best of what's out there, and then tested it, so we know exactly what you're getting.
So we touched on it before. The CSIRO decided to do some crafty work there with the finger limes. What did they do? And you do grow. There's a few of them. There's red centre lime.
Yes, there's red centre. There's sunrise, and then there's a desert lime they call outback.
Outback. Yeah.
So yes, we grow those CSIRO varieties now. Two of them, the red centre and the sunrise, are finger lime crosses. So they've crossed with a kumquat with the sunrise, and it looks a bit like a kumquat, that fruit. And the red centre they've crossed with a mandarin, and it's quite different. It's a lovely little plant, and it has like an egg-shaped fruit. That's a dark burgundy colour when it's ripe, and it doesn't have the vesicles quite like a finger lime, but very similar. So yeah, and it's a very interesting little plant as well. So they've done those two crosses many years ago. I think maybe in the 80s or maybe even before. They did a lot of crosses and looking for new varieties, and they came and they selected from all their crosses with finger limes. They picked those two, and then they selected out a desert lime from a whole range of desert limes, what they thought was the best one, and they called that outback. So there's so they did a lot of selection as well, which we're able to piggyback onto to bring these plants to the gardening public.
Yeah, they're very popular. I know that. The red centre, it's also known as the blood lime, isn't it? That's a
Yes, they call it the blood lime, and it does get red inside the fruit, but that's climate dependent as well. So in certain climates and certain years, you'll get more colour than in others.
Yeah, sure. So desert lime. Okay, so we've talked about finger lime, but what I love desert limes. They look like an olive tree to me. They're fabulous, quite different.
They do look like an olive tree, and yes, they're quite different to what you expect with a citrus. But their proper name is Citrus glauca, and they produce a very round fruit that's again quite acid, but it's used for jams. It can be preserved and eaten. So a lot of different uses for those desert limes. Yeah, I'd just like to make mention of the fruiting time of the desert lime and how quickly it fruits. Now, that's probably because it's been in the desert and has to take opportunities when it can. So the desert lime, it will flower in the spring, and then it will by mid-November, the tree will be laden with fruit, and they fruit like crazy. And then it'll ripen as we head towards Christmas, so December. And once it's ripe, then it doesn't hold the fruit on the tree. Once it's ripe, the fruit will start to drop. So if you want to collect your fruit, put something under the tree. But yeah, it will drop the fruit fairly quickly, and that's just because it's a desert lime. Now, yeah, so that's quite quick from flowering through maturity of the fruit to the fruit being mature and ripe. That compared to finger limes are quite quick compared to other citrus as well, where they'll flower in the spring and they'll develop the fruit through the earliest of them will start to be ready at Christmas, the New Year period, and then right through to the end of the autumn. So they vary a bit because there's so many of them, but yeah, that they take a bit longer. Desert limes are quite quick, and the finger limes will hold on the tree quite a while, unlike the desert lime. So just a couple of things to be aware of.
Yeah, interesting. And you have to pick that fruit off, and you manage it differently. Like a finger lime, you're cutting open, cracking open, or so I've seen people cut the end and use a rolling pin, squeeze out your little pearls. But with the desert lime, as you say, it's like probably like a big blueberry size. Would that be?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like a blueberry in that sense, like it's soft. It's not got you wouldn't say it's a rind, would you? It's very thin. You can't peel it at all.
It's thin skinned.
Yeah. So you if you're using it,
so
you got to use it you're cooking with it really. It's tangy, but it'd be lovely. I've had a lovely sort of marmalade made with it, or macerated in a sugar syrup. But if you made like a paste and had it with cheese or something, it's an extraordinary fruit. But really, it's a very handsome tree to have in your garden. Wouldn't you say so?
It is. Yes, and it's amazing when it's in fruit. And it's just smothered in fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can I just make mention for the future that we are going through the process with another one or two desert limes, a bit different to the one. So down the track, we'll have a little more to talk about, but that's down the track.
Always something exciting coming out of Citrus Man, Gary.
That's right.
Yes. So look, they're becoming more and more popular. People are seeing them more in the marketplace and using them in their cooking. But I suppose with what we just said, 12 different varieties of citrus gems or finger limes available on Citrus Man. What are some of your favourite ones, Gary? Why do you like them?
Okay, yes, I suppose I do have some favourites. I have a rainforest. We have a rainforest pearl tree ourselves, just outside my house. That's been there for years. Now, rainforest pearl is a pink, and it's very reliable. And it's just a year after year, you get good crops off it. So. And it's the one we've grown the longest. It's the first one we started with, so that's part of why it's my favourite. So and it'd perform well for most people. And now we have it on the dwarf rootstock as well. Yes. So you've got a choice. My tree is probably 20 years old,
and it's quite tall, isn't it?
And it's about 3 meters. 3 meters. Yeah, it's about 3 meters. Yeah. Yeah, so my tree in my back garden is about 3 meters, Susan, which has been there for about 20 years. So, and sure, it's been pruned once or twice, but that's about the size you would expect a rainforest pearl to get to. But again, we've got it in the dwarfing rootstock, so that we can, people can have something that's not quite that size.
Yeah.
So that's my number one favourite. It's the longest one we've been growing. So it's very much a favourite. Now there are a couple of others that I like, and one of them is so we've got rainforest pearl. It's a pink. And the other one I really like is what we call de-emerald, and it's a very bright luminescent green. Again, it's very reliable. It's a nice bush, and it's got this really bright, luminescent green flesh on the inside. So very much a favourite as well. And when you put the two together, the flavours are different. It's if you didn't have them together and you tasted one and then a week later tasted another one, oh, that tastes like a finger lime. But when you taste them together, the flavours are quite different. And so it just gives you that mix. Now the other one I'd like to mention is Little Ruby.
Oh, I love Little
Now,
Ruby.
Little Ruby is very tight, very small. Like it doesn't need to be on a dwarfing rootstock because it's a very tight, small growing plant anyway. Naturally dwarfs itself. So it's it's very, very heavy bearing, but you don't see the fruit so much because it's all on the inside of the plant. So if you just pull the plant apart, be careful because they're spiky. But if you just pull the plant apart, you see all a lot of the fruit is within the canopy of the little tree. Now, and it is burgundy. It can be really, really dark burgundy in colour. So it's not a big fruit, but it's got this wonderful, wonderful colour. So again, it's very interesting, lovely little plant, really nice plant, it's this really deep red.
I remember the first time I tried the fruit from Little Ruby, and it was so red. It was so red, and I didn't know whether it was my mind playing a trick on me, but it certainly tasted to me like raspberries. It was just the most beautiful flavour.
Yes. Yep, that's the other thing. If you put those three alongside, then the flavour is quite different. Yeah. And it is that really deep red fruit has that different raspberry type flavour. Yeah. And so it's a very interesting little world, the finger lime world, to delve into with all these different selections.
Fascinating. And look, just if you ate oysters, and you squeeze those little citrusy pearls on top, or you're making a buttery sauce for your fish dishes or even cheesy dishes, the citrus pearls in those, and if you use the different colours, are fabulous. But you can eat them, slice them and eat the rind as well. They're so fabulous. So fabulous. And it was, what about the gold one, Gary? I haven't tasted the gold pearl.
The gold pearl, it's again, it's a different flavour to those three. Gold pearl, the fruits probably bigger than each of those ones, and it's a goldy colour inside when it's mature, and the vesicles are a little bit larger. It's again a different flavour. It's hard to explain on a podcast the flavour. Yes. But again, it's different to those three, and the juice vesicles, they're a little larger. The ones on the D emerald are smaller than the rainforest pearl and the Little Ruby. So there's all this variation that goes on with the finger limes, and again, just harp back to thanking Judy for all her work in selecting that and saying to us, these are the ones that you should be growing.
Yeah. Oh, well, is one is named in her honour? Is it Judy's Everbearing?
Judy's Everbearing. That's right. Now I haven't mentioned Judy's Everbearing, but it has the slightest blush to it, but its bearing period is longer, so you can get a fruit off it at more than that period that I mentioned. So again, so there's another advantage if you wanted something that that was not in that normal window. Judy's Everbearing will suit you there. But that's the one that takes her name.
Yeah, good-o. And look, they're pretty good. Gary's mentioned that they're available in the dwarf form, so that makes them perfectly suited to growing in pots. But they are good for containers. But do they need being rainforesty? They will take a little less sun perhaps than a normal citrus needs.
They'll take a little less sun. Normally they'll be fine in back in backyards and home gardens. They're a little bit careful in the really cold areas, because remember, they are a rainforest plant. So, if you're in one of the colder areas, then just put them where there's a bit of protection, and to get them through the winter. But yeah, they're for a rainforest plant, they're fairly versatile, and particularly that they're on proper citrus rootstock, so that helps.
Yes. So, and to that end, you're not having to give them a native phosphate-free fertilizer, is that?
No.
So you're just giving them citrus booster, of course.
Yeah, just normal nutrition that we've spoken about in other podcasts.
Sure. Well, wow, what a world! What a huge world! And look, we know that there are hundreds of people out there are just like finger lime crazy. So I know that they'll have their own thoughts and feelings about what we've discussed. But thank you, Gary. That was like so super interesting. And I just have to say how proud I am that we have such a beautiful and unique tree to Australia that's been on this land and in the culture of our First Nations people for tens of thousands of years. And it's really thrilling to see them so revered and so popular. And it's great to be involved in all of that with the citrus gems. So they're well worthy of having, really, you must have a finger lime in the garden. So thank you, Gary.
Right, Susan, I agree.
Yeah, and we're going to have a little bit of a break. This is actually the last in this little series that we've done. We're going to do another series, but we're just going to have a little rest, have a little juice, lemon juice or something. Yeah. We've got some great ideas for our next series, but we'd love to hear from you. If you've got any thoughts, you can stay in contact with us on our socials on Facebook or Instagram, and we do hope that you're joined up to the Juicy News. We send that out every couple of weeks, so we'll keep you updated on that. And we'll look forward to having a chat with you then. Thanks again, Gary, and we'll see you next time when we talk about citrus.
We will. Thank you, Susan. Look forward to Series 2.
Thanks for listening. For resources and contact details relevant to this episode, please see the show notes. Subscribe to Citrus Experience so you know when the next episode goes live. And follow Citrus Men on social media for more great content.